Hello, friends. I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. I hope everything is great. Everything here is wonderful. So, there was a time in my life when walking into a Harbor Freight store felt like it was just magical, right? If you don't know what Harbor Freight is, they are a discount seller of discount tools. They have a wide range of tools, from hand tools to air tools, electrical tools, basically anything you could possibly think of in a workshop environment. They sell it, but they sell the like the dollar store version of that tool. And so going into that place not too long ago, even, when I say there's a time in my life, I'm meaning within the last 6 years, 8 years, 5 years, whatever, just 4 years ago. Going into there seemed magical because there was a plethora of tools that I would love to obtain, or consumables that I would love to obtain, and their prices seemed obtainable to me. It seemed like, oh, if I wanted that thing, I could purchase that. I'll just save up. And going to, a reputable tools dealer or even a big box store and seeing the prices, I could go buy a grinder at Harbor Freight for $12, but the cheapest one I could get it at Lowe's or Home Depot is $70. $12 is obtainable for me. I could reach that goal. I couldn't reach $70 goal 4 years ago. So going to Harbor Freight was this magical experience. I would go in there and just be like, oh my God, there's so much I could, if only I had $20. So yesterday I found myself in a Harbor Freight store because I've been wanting to try an experiment. And so I went in there with the intention of purchasing an experiment, which I did. And that is this 7-inch variable speed polisher sander. This is the experiment. I think I paid $34 for this. I think that sounds about right. I don't know for sure. But the point is, this is a $34 experiment. And I fully intend to be let down by this purchase. Not necessarily intend, I fully expect to be let down by this purchase. I fully expect to be wishing I had purchased a better version of this tool. But that's not the point of the experiment. The point of the experiment is to see if this is a viable option, and buying the better version of this tool just to see if it's a viable option seemed like a waste. So I purchased their Warrior brand. Now this is kind of like Harbor Freight. If you're not familiar with their stores, they've gone through some kind of rebranding in the past decade. It used to just be you would go in there and they had what they called Chicago Electric, which was or Pittsburgh, which was their base, that's what they sold. And they still do. In fact, they have a Chicago Electric version of this polisher, and I want to say it was less than $20. This is the $35 version they call Warrior, and then they now have a tool line above this that they call Bauer. And depending on your budget, you can buy from any, you can buy any of those things, right? Like you can go through mid-range, but even their Bauer brand is like the cheapest. It's even less than Ryobi. Like they're not great tools. The point is, there is no point, but the point is that I went into Harbor Freight yesterday, and it was just kind of on a whim. I've been wanting to try this experiment for a while. We were that way. There's a Harbor Freight in Morgantown now. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go buy that tool that I've been thinking about for a while now. And so I did, and here it is. Right? Ta-da! It's in my hands. and there wasn't a lot of thought behind it. There was a little bit because, this was $35. They have what I would rather have is a dual action polisher, which is basically like a random orbit sander. It's just got an elliptical pattern instead of this this is just a straight up angle grinder with a head screwed on it. The dual action actually wobbles and introduces some, variation in the scratch pattern. But that's not necessary for the experiment that I'm trying to carry out. And all I want to do with this thing is try to use it to apply tried and true's varnish oil. This is the tried and true Danish oil with pine resin mixed in. And if you watched my video from a few months back where I talked about building M's shelves, putting that stuff on wore me the heck out. It was like shoulders, arms, like it took so much energy to push and just like grind this stuff into the surface. And I thought, what if I buy one of these guys with an interface pad and a terry cloth cover? Can I use that to put this stuff on? So that's what we're going to try. That's what this is about. This is a $35 experiment. If nothing else, if that fails and it doesn't really work, I have no reason to believe it won't. It's an I guess it's not expensive, but it is going to require some consumables, and these aren't cheap. I think even at Harbor Freight, 2 terry cloth covers for the thing are like $5. So, to do one coat with this thing is going to cost me $2.50 just for this thing. So it's not cheap by any means, but it's also not prohibitively expensive considering, I normally, I don't know, the finish costs way more than this stuff. So they're consumable, and I get that, but if nothing else, I can get a waxing pad and I can use this to apply paste wax, which is something else that I do on larger projects that, like especially like the router table. I came down here the other day and spent a good while hand sanding and then waxing it because I wasn't happy with it. I would have loved to have had this for that process to just to put on the wax. I'm not going to use this on my car. I'm not going to use this on M's car or my bike or anything like that. I definitely would not recommend doing any kind of polishing on a car without a dual action because it will burn paint very easily and it will leave swirl marks and you'll be disappointed. But for furniture, for applying finishes, for furniture wax, I think it'll be perfectly adequate. And while I was there, I also picked up a 15-foot power strip to put on the back of my router cabinet. Right now, I just have I have an extension cord going to my table saw, and I want to be able to have my router or my table saw or my planer or my fan plugged in, and I don't want to have to unplug and replug and remember all of that all the time. So I'll have a power cord, which gives me an extra place to just turn things off instead of unplugging constantly. But I went in there and I came out and it meant very little to me. A transaction that 4 years ago, boy, I would have really had to think long and hard about that purchase, which I'm not going to lie, I've been searching for an affordable polisher for a while now. And I saw the Harbor Freight one and went, oh, that's the one I'm going to go buy. Because, this is just an experiment. And if it works and I enjoy the process or, I find I would like to use this tool in other ways where a dual action polisher would be more handy, then I will spend the money at that point. For right now, I'm considering this to be like a $35 experiment, and we'll see what happens. But it felt weird. It felt weird to just be able to go pick something up on a whim without thinking about how much it cost, without really worrying about it too much. My kid has medical bills and stuff, but I'm okay. I'm still not used to it. It's still very, very weird to not be worried about money. Yeah. So, how's your day? Got any plans for the weekend? It is Memorial Day. I will have the kids starting Sunday night. I don't know if we're going to do anything on Monday. Probably just have maybe a cookout or something. Just chill. But But yeah, let me know what you're up to this weekend. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is meliorism. It is a noun meaning a philosophy of optimism that says the world is gradually improving through divine intervention or human effort or both. Thomas Hardy's philosophy was distinctly meliorist because he believed ultimately in the goodness of humankind. Meliorism. M-E-L-I-O-R-I-S-M. But they used meliorist, not meliorism, and that's weird. They used a completely different form.